Good morning to everyone. This session on land, I think the Dalit Land Rights is it will go into the social issues and also land issues, the access to resources, the livelihoods, what's happening in the field. We'll be sharing. This session will run to 75 minutes. Please, please, sir, please. This session will run to I think 75 minutes, and we have four eminent experienced I think, panelists: Mr. Adi Lalit Babar, Mr. Adi Nicholas, Mr. Adi Raghunandan, Mr. Adi Ramesh Sharma. All the four. I'm not going to take much time introducing each one of them. I think they will have an opportunity to introduce themselves for half a minute at the beginning of the sessions. We would like this to be an interactive session so that it's kind of more I think sharing of experiences, what you observe, all those things. This session will be moderated by Father John Kumar. He is there. I think that he's been working among the Dalits for the last 40 years, 45 years. I think full of I think Tamil Nadu and in I think South India. So without much introduction, them talking, let me hand it over to Father Kumar, and then he will take it over from me. So we are now at 9:15. Let's go up to 9:10:45. I think 10:30, 10:40. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the speakers. You are given 7 to 8 minutes to give your first installment of information or sharing and analytical perspectives you would like to share. May exceed to 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes each. Then after everybody shares, we will ask for some questions, critical questions, and open the floor for questions from the audience. Okay. Who would like to go first? Lalit? Yes. Lalit starts.
Can you want to show the
मैं थोड़ा क्षमा चाहूँगा कि मैं पूरा इंग्लिश नहीं बात कर सकता हूँ क्योंकि वो प्रैक्टिस ज़्यादा नहीं है इंग्लिश में बात करने का, लेकिन मिक्स में हिंदी और इंग्लिश थोड़ा रहेगा। शायद कई लोगों को वो दिक्कत आ जाएगी, तो जिनको हिंदी नहीं आती हो। फर्स्ट में व्हाट इज़ द डिफरेंस ऑफ लैंड राइट एंड दलित लैंड राइट? तो ओके, हाँ, इट्स गुड। तो हम पहले लैंड राइट में दलित लैंड राइट अलग क्यों, ये सवाल तो बहुत सारे लोग पूछते हैं कि लैंड राइट, तो हम ये मानते हैं कि लैंड राइट जो ज़मीन हमारी है उसको बचाने के लिए जो आंदोलन, बहुत सारे आंदोलन होते हैं, उसमें लैंड राइट आंदोलन, जैसे एसीजेड बन रहा है, कोई हाईवेज बन रहा है, या कुछ प्रोजेक्ट्स, अलग प्रोजेक्ट बन रहे हैं, तो इसमें जिनकी ज़मीन जा रही है वो एक साथ में आके उसको एक लैंड राइट की मूवमेंट से बहुत सारे हमारे कंट्री में इस तरह के आंदोलन होते हैं। कुछ कॉमन लैंड राइट के लिए मतलब वो जंगल बचाना है या कुछ, ये इस तरह के भी लैंड राइट के आंदोलन लैंड राइट में हो जाते हैं। लेकिन दलित लैंड राइट में हमारे पर्सपेक्टिव से 3 कारणों से दलित लैंड राइट जो है कि फर्स्ट, वो लाइवलीहुड के लिए वो लैंडलेस है। टोटल अपने देश में 34% लैंडलेस लोग हैं, टोटल पॉपुलेशन, उसमें से 70% दलित और नोमैडिक ट्राइब्स के लोग हैं, उसमें 70% के इसमें। और लाइवलीहुड के लिए वो खेत मजदूरी करते हैं, लेकिन उसको ज़मीन नहीं है। खेती करने का अनुभव है उनको, रोज करते हैं खेती के इसके ऊपर काम, लेकिन उनकी खुद की जमीन नहीं है। तो ये एक पहला। दूसरा ये है कि दलित के बारे में, जो घर बनाने के लिए या मकान बनाने के लिए जो भी उनको जगह नहीं है, हम देखते हैं कि फुटपाथ पे कुछ लोग शहरों में आके रहते हैं, या कुछ अनऑथराइज झोपड़पट्टी जिसको स्लम बोलते हैं, वहाँ पे निवास करते हैं। उनको इशू है हाउसिंग, निवासी के लिए लैंड नहीं है, ज़मीन नहीं है। और तीसरा जो मुद्दा बहुत सारे लोगों को शायद मालूम नहीं होगा कि मरने के बाद अंतिम संस्कार करने के लिए भी दलितों को प्रॉब्लम है। कई गांव में 2-2 दिन डेड बॉडी रखनी पड़ती है, जलाने के लिए लोग विरोध करते हैं या दफनाने के लिए विरोध करते हैं, तो उनकी खुद की ज़मीन नहीं है। तो ऐसे कई गांव महाराष्ट्र में हैं, आंध्र में हैं, कई कई राज्यों में हमने देखा है। अ, तो ये कारणों से दलितों के लिए लैंड ये महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा बनता है। करना है ट्रांसलेट।
I will, I think, summarize. I think some of the other data you said were, I think, presented here in English, if you want to see that. And he said, I think, the Dalit rights are different from this, I think, land rights that you need to understand. So the Dalit rights come from the problem of the, I think, I think social issues. Okay. He is also talking about the andolans, the, I think, movements, federations, I think, networks to promote, to protect the rights of the Dalits. And he also talked about the landlessness among Dalits. You will see that I think this 71% of the Dalits lack land ownership, highlighting the significant problem in land access. Also, the, I think, rural ownership data, it's about, I think, 58% of Dalit souls in the rural areas do not own land. Actually, a new data set has come, which he did not refer. I'm just referring that I think post, I think, pandemic, 21% of, I think, the Dalits, more Dalits have lost land, which means their whole life is, I think, so vulnerable. He also highlighted about how they are dependent for the livelihoods and the survival on land. Yes, sir.
हाँ, तो थोड़ा बहुत महाराष्ट्र के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में मैं जिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में काम करता हूँ, डॉक्टर अंबेडकर एग्रीकल्चर रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट इंस्टीट्यूट, तो उसके साथ 37 ईयर से मैं पहले बैंक में काम करता था, लेकिन मेरे गांव में सोशल बाइकआउट हुआ दलितों के ऊपर। तो जो अपर कास्ट के लोग हैं उन्होंने सोशल बाइकआउट किया, दलित को रोजगार नहीं देना है, कुछ ये करना है। तो उसके बाद में वहाँ पे 90 एकड़ दलितों की महार वतन लैंड थी, जो ब्रिटिश पीरियड में कुछ जाति को लैंड अवार्ड किया गया था। जैसे अपर कास्ट में भी पाटिल, कुलकर्णी, देशमुख इस तरह से अवार्ड दिए थे, वैसे लोअर कास्ट में 2 कास्ट को ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट ने लैंड दिया था। एक महार, जो वो कम्युनिटी शेड्यूल कास्ट में है, वो गांव में जो भी सरकारी के प्रतिनिधि आते हैं, तो उनकी देखभाल करना और कुछ काम, गांव की सेवा करने का काम उस कम्युनिटी को दिया था। तो उसके लिए उनको एक अवार्ड दिया था। तो महाराष्ट्र में करीब 5,28,000 एकड़ लैंड उत्तर महाराष्ट्र और कर्नाटक बाउंड्री में, जितने उत्तर कर्नाटक के कुछ जिले हैं, बेलगांव, विजापुर और इस जिले में वो लैंड है। दूसरा कम्युनिटी था रामोसी। रामोसी वो गांव की रखवाली करने की ड्यूटी थी उनकी। पूरे गांव को अभी सिक्योरिटी गार्ड जैसे एक रोल होता है, उसी टाइम पुराने ज़माने में था, तो उस कम्युनिटी को भी अवार्ड दिया, लैंड अवार्ड। तो उसको रामोशी वतन बोलते हैं। तो ये महाराष्ट्र में वो कम्युनिटी है नोमैडिक ट्राइब में, और ये महार है एससी में। तो दोनों कम्युनिटी की लैंड के बारे में हमने एसवीएसएस, जो मेरे ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, उसने काम करना शुरू किया बैंक का जॉब छोड़ के। आ, तो एक गांव में जहां सोशल बाइकआउट किया था, वहां पे 90 एकड़ लैंड का एक्सपेरिमेंट बनाने का काम अभी भी चल रहा है। जो एक मॉडल के तौर पर कैसे पर्यावरण हो या सोशल और कम्युनिटी फार्मिंग, जिसको कलेक्टिव फार्मिंग हम बोलते हैं, तो इंडिविजुअली लैंड होल्डिंग बहुत कम है। तो इस कम्युनिटी को एक साथ में आके ही लैंड कल्टीवेशन का से आगे बढ़ सकता है, इसके लिए एक्सपेरिमेंट किया गया है। तो वो महारवतन लैंड के ऊपर हम काम करते हैं।
Oh, sorry, sort of. And he also went to the history that I think British have, I think, kind of they allocated some land for the different social groups, and those lands were kind of under, I think, threat. They were also, I think, grabbed a bit. That's what I was saying. Then he was also talking about, I think, recent work on I think community farming cooperatives to overcome these social boycotts. I think the 90 acres they are doing some experiments. Okay, I just tried to, I think, summarize. If I do some mistakes, please.
शॉर्ट में मैं एक 2 मिनट में ये काम करते समय हमने बहुत सारे प्रॉब्लम्स को पॉलिसी में लाने का कोशिश किया है। जैसे नेचुरल डिजास्टर में, ड्राउटपूर्ण स्थिति में लाइवलीहुड्स का, जो गरीब के पास जो जानवर है उसको कैसे सस्टेन हो सकता है, वो उसके बारे में हमने काम किया, वो पॉलिसी में लाया। ये अनलीगल ट्रांसफ़र लैंड हुआ है, उसके बारे में एक कमेटी महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट ने नियुक्त किया था, वो रिपोर्ट पब्लिश करने में किया है। इसमें बहुत सारे नाम जो है कास्ट के नाम थे लैंड रिकॉर्ड में, तो लैंड रिकॉर्ड के कास्ट के नाम हटा के उनके सरनेम ला के वो काम एएसवीएसएस ने किया। बहुत सारी पॉलिसी बन गई है हमारे काम करने के इसमें, और महाराष्ट्र में कई लाखों लोगों को उसका फायदा हो चुका है। अभी हम ग्रुप फार्मिंग की एक मॉडल बना के महाराष्ट्र गवर्नमेंट को दे रहे हैं कि कैसे दलित लोग स्मॉल लैंड होल्डिंग में भी सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर को कैसे लाइवलीहुड सस्टेन कर सकते हैं। तो इसके ऊपर हमारा काम चल रहा है। थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. Your information and analytical perspective of your reality, especially based on Maharashtra and all India level, will help us to understand and follow. And who will go next? Ramesh? Thank you, sir. Lalit, sir.
Okay, you want to stand there?
Now, Nicholas from Tamil Nadu will be talking to us. Nicholas from Tamil Nadu, he has a movement called Dalit Dalit Land Rights Movement for last more than 15, 20 years, two decades. And he has identified Panchama land given in 1892 by Truman Hire, famous British collector, who saw the plight of the Dalits, and land alone will give them a kind of edge over the others to compete in the social battlefield. And land and education, and consequently he saw the growth of those people, and he said, this is the way to liberate them. So he identified those lands have gone to other people over the decades. And Nicholas identified in his district and the neighborhood districts, and helped them to get back, the Dalits get back their lands, or their progeny getting the lands. Now, Nicholas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As Father Kumar had introduced, I am from Tamil Nadu. I work with the Dalits. First, I started to work with the Dalits in order to address the issue of discrimination. When I was a student at the university, I studied at St. Joseph's Trichy, where I was actively involved in the students' movement during that time. Since I myself was discriminated in my own village, since I come from a Dalit background, I really started to work with the Dalits immediately after I left my university. And you might have heard about the organized attacks on the Dalits in many areas, including the Keelwenman incident, in which in 1968, 44 Dalit agricultural laborers were burned down by the landlords. And it was in 1978 in the town where I live at present, Viluppuram. There was an organized attack on the Dalits. And the whole night I happened to be an eyewitness to the attack, in which 12 Dalits were burnt down and 2,000 of their houses were burnt down, huts were burnt down. Only in the morning, when we walked out of the railway station to catch a bus to my village, I saw the dead bodies and the burnt down huts, which made me that I should work for the discrimination of the Dalit against Dalits. And I really formed a group of young people to come together first to address the issue of discrimination. It is how we started our work in 1978. When we started to address the issue of discrimination, when we stood collectively, we were able to really face the discrimination. And it was a kind of successful thing. It was in this context, when we were working, we found out that landlessness of the Dalits is the basic cause for all this kind of discrimination. And I can also share my own story itself, but I didn't want, maybe later on. So it was in this context. We were searching for the land which can be acquired by the Dalits, because there was Land Ceiling Act and many other acts were there, and we were really looking whether we can try to get some land for the Dalits. It was how we started. It was in this context the issue of Panchami lands came up to the fore in 1994 on October 10th, when a group of Dalits marched to get back the lost Panchami lands. 2 young Dalits were shot down, and this became in Chingalpet town near Chennai, and it became a kind of emotional issue for all the Dalits. And it was at that time we came to know about Panchami land, and which is also called the depressed class land, and we went to really study the history behind that. It was at that time we found out that in 1891, because of the pressure of few Dalit leaders at that time in Tamil Nadu, one of the district collectors in Chingalpet, he made a very brief study on the socio-economic and educational situation of the Dalits, and he came out with a report that they are near slaves. They are near slaves, they do not have education, no housing facilities, and they have to be given land. That was his recommendation in 1891 to the British Parliament. And in 1892, the British Parliament came up with a decision that the Dalits should be given land. And in 1892, after the Parliament resolution in London, there was this Queen Victoria's proclamation saying that the Dalits have to be distributed land in the erstwhile old Madras presidency, and with the condition that this land can never be used by other caste people. Only it can be used by Dalits. It's also called as depressed class land or Panchami land. Panchami is the land given to the fifth caste. At that time, 1.2 million acres of land were given to the Dalits by the British in the old Madras presidency, which includes Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and some part of Kerala except Malabar and Trivandrum kingdom, and most part of Karnataka except the Mysore, and also in Andhra Pradesh except this Hyderabad Nizam's region. In all the place, this depressed class of land was given, and in Tamil Nadu alone, 300,000 acres were given to the Dalits. We found out, and we were organizing struggles and demonstrations, and it was at that time we noticed that struggles and demonstration will never work, because you have to approach this issue very systematically, and we decided to form a federation of organizations working on this issue, and we named it Dalit Land Rights Federation in the northern districts of Tamil Nadu. And first we started to identify the Panchami lands, available Panchami lands in our area. And in the beginning it was very difficult, but with the introduction of the RTA, we were able to collect all the details. And finally, after collecting and training our people, especially the young women, we started to really petition for land. And when we started to petition for land, we decided that only the Dalit women should get land. Not other than that, because in the history we found out it was grabbed by the caste Hindus from the men. Because though the lands which were in the name of the Dalit women are still with the Dalits, then we understood the women have a very strong linkages with the land. They do not care about ownership. They are linked to the land. So it is in this context we mobilize the Dalit women to petition for land, and in the northern districts of Tamil Nadu alone, 92,000 women have filed individual petitions to them and also participated in the annual land tribunals to really negotiate with the officials. But finally, we had received only 3,000 women had received, and Shejo, who is sitting in front of me, she knows, because she used to come there very often. And only 300,000 women were able to get. It was at that time we understood, because through RTA we had collected the details and handed over to the government, and the government has planned to grab this land to set up industries. Get it from the caste Hindus and set up industry. That was because it was at that time this whole issue of special economic zones erupted, 2006. After that, the only agenda of the state is to grab the lands and commons and hand it over to the private interest to make profit, not to distribute. So it is in this context we understood that land distribution is not the priority of the state, and it is the people who have to. That is why from 2009 we have decided to occupy the land peacefully, because legally it is owned by the Dalits. All the court judgments, starting from the judgment, lower court judgment 1968 in Palakot in Dharmaburi, and up to Justice Chandru's judgment in 2008, November 7th, all judgments are in favor of the thing. All the government standing orders are in favor of the Dalits. Everything is in favor. Why should we ask for titles? Then we decided no titles. Because titles are meant for only selling and buying. The Dalit women want to use the land to really develop their children, develop the community, and satisfy their food needs and things like that. That is how we have started. And unfortunately, there was this COVID. After that, they said social distancing. I do not know what social distancing means. They were together, but they had made the people to get away. So then again, we have planned from the October 10th this year, because it is the 30th death anniversary of these two young people who were shot down by the police. And we cannot wait for 30 years. And the coming years, we are going to we are preparing our women to collectively use the land. Because we feel land is food, land is employment, land is education, land is health, and land is everything. That is what our feeling is. Because it is from my father I learnt all this. Because he was a bonded laborer for 16 years. And after that, after 16 years, he was admitted to he went, after completing 5th standard, he was a bonded laborer after the sudden loss of his father and mother. In order to protect his sisters, he was a bonded laborer. And after 16 years, he was put up in the British Army. The first thing he did was to buy land and to educate his children. And it was whenever he was on holidays, he used to share his stories. And he was telling me, land is food, land is employment, land is everything. Buy land and get educated. That is what he was telling me. That is under this thing we are mobilizing the communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. A beautiful narrative, bit analytical, and also throwing some light into the bare realities of Dalits and their relation with the land. Now, Mr. Raghunandan.
Very good morning. Let me introduce myself. I am Raghunandan. I stay in Mumbai, and basically I am a researcher and I study people, forest, people, natural resources, interactions, and I've been doing for over last 25 years. And in the same context, I got into touch with this, whatever you are seeing here, in Marathwada region of Maharashtra, that is central part of Maharashtra. There is a couple, husband and wife, Shantaram Bapu Pandare, whose work I'm going to share with you, and my learnings, which I have learned from in turn from him. And over since 2008, I've been interacting with Shantaram Bapu and his wife Mangal Tai. We call them Tai and Bapu. So let me share his work in brief and policy implications especially, and whatever our friend here he shared, all of them I will not repeat. All of them have been experienced by, obviously, by Dalits of Maharashtra, and it's almost the similar situation. At times they were killed, burned, massacred, and whatnot. I mean, it was very sorry situation, and it still happens, and lots of discrimination still it's existing. And in all negative environment, this work is taking place. And yeah, let me share. Just to make you familiar with the location, in India, Maharashtra, and this is Aurangabad district. Recently, it's renamed Sambhajinagar district. And almost all blocks in Aurangabad, Bapu and Tai, they work. All over actually Maharashtra, central part of Maharashtra, they work, but their focused work, especially land rights and getting titles, ownership, I would say, not titles, ownership, like he said. They want to cultivate it, their livelihood, their sustenance, their own existence, their identity, everything is land. Unless they get land, they are no one. I mean, that's the thing I've seen there. Let me share some about Bapu and Mangaltai. Since 1971, he was also a student volunteer in Ukraine, Yuva Kranti Dal in Maharashtra. It was a kind of a student movement. Bapu is product of Yukranda and Bharatiya Republican Party. I mean, Dalit movement is product of. In 1971, he started working along with Mangaltai. Mangaltai comes from a reasonably good family of traders. Both of them started working. Mangaltai is journalist, and then she started working as faculty in Marathwada University. But my point in sharing all these things is that I would like to differentiate between work of people like Bapu and Mangaltai and NGOs, so-called NGOs with grants and financial support and all that. That's what very important. This work is, I would say, that's my personal thing. I mean, personally, individually, I say that this is organic. They come from Dalit community. They are there, and they are in their younger days when it was quite hectic and all fights and discriminations and police cases and all that. In that time, these Dalit communities, which is a really actually heterogeneous group, there are Bauddhas, which were earlier called Mahar, Mang, Charmakar, and whatnot. There are at least 30 communities. They come together, they are grouped as Dalit, they are Panchams, like in caste hierarchy, they are Panchams. In Maharashtra, there are around 30, 40, they are now scheduled caste, SCs. They supported Bapu and Mangaltai. They collected funds. Their sustenance, their daily food and travel was supported, and that's the way the work has taken shape. That's my point first. And so that's the thing. So why Bapu and Mangaltai I'm sharing? First thing, my interaction with them, my association with them, and this organic work, not NGO supported work. That's also important, but that has its own limitation. Once you get through with your funding and it's time bound work in 3 years or 4 years or 9 years of 3 years blocks and like that, I have seen that in Marathwada that has happened. I'm not qualifying, please note. This is Bapu, one with white hair, and just yesterday I received photos from him and his colleagues. Okay, let me go directly to the points. Two important government resolutions of Government Maharashtra are important in its work, 1978 and in 1991, through which Dalit, so-called encroachments, they call it encroachment. But for Dalit communities, they are not encroachments. They are their rights. I mean, they are rightfully entitled to cultivate those lands, and I subscribe to that. And 100% that is the approach. So encroachments uh, in this 1991, which is the latest, from certain period 1971 to 1991, these were regularized, but with conditions that no more than 2 hectares of land. For what, we don't know. People had more lands, like 10 acres, which is around 4 hectares and more. They were limited to 2 hectares land, and then cultivated until 14th of April of 1991. Government had certain these conditions and should be living within periphery of 5 kilometers. That's in 1991, and more or less these are the gists I'm saying, and there are so many, a little bit more of conditions. Within these conditions, they received, Bapu and Mangaltai and his colleagues' work has resulted in 1,200 families receiving its clear title. Clear is important, without any conditions. Now these 1,200 families, maybe for some it is a smaller number, but for those people in those areas, 9 blocks of Aurangabad district, it's something, and 6,500 hectares of land, and work is going on. It runs around 84,000 families, and in 5 digits of, thousands and thousands of hectares of land. Still work needs, and it's under process, but there are difficulties. He works in those 9 blocks. I mean, his whatever I'm referring to is in those 9 blocks. Let me share some implication. It's not in encroachment per se, whatever I said. In World War II, during World War II period, Britishers, like our friend said, British as well as Nizam, this area was in British, under British regulation, and a part under Nizam regulation. Both these states had given this land for food, for land for cultivation, and they encouraged. So they were entitled. I mean, they were not they are not encroachers, and that these documents are there. And whatever you say, I mean, if it's not on document as such on paper, but people have their memories, and that is these days they are also, if you document that and register that, I mean, people hate that, then it's becomes a document, I mean, a legal evidence. Second thing is, these are my implications or whatever understanding, learnings I'm sharing, a bit patchy. It's not in continuation. It will take time, but I'm just sharing with you because this session is about Dalit land rights, their claim over lands, and implications for further work. Mostly in Maharashtra, whatever I'm referring to, these soils are, I mean, these lands are really inferior. None of these lands have, often they are without any water source. They are all stony or on plateaus and with very less soil. So, I mean, you understand, even if you have land, it takes, I mean, at least 13, 14, 15 years to develop soil layer on it and make it productive. And obviously, Dalit communities, their I mean, their characteristics is lack of resources, socially disadvantaged, and all these, they are at mercy of whatever. I mean, they are at the, always, all the time, they are at the receiving end. That's my point. And this is atrocities. Landed communities, irrespective of their higher Brahmin, Kshatriya, or whatever, all four castes always discriminate these atrocities. These Dalit community or Dalit friends, they face atrocities, and that this is, I mean, it's still going on. In 87, I remember, like whatever he referred in 68, in one village, which is Limboni in Jalna district, which was earlier Aurangabad district, Dalit women were burned when they were cultivating their fields. I mean, in the morning when they were in the fields, people grabbed them, landed community youths, they grabbed them and burned them. I mean, that was, I mean, really horrible. I mean, still it's happening. My point is, yeah. And for some more, two or four, 2, 3 more points. Even if this 78 and 91 GR and you have documents, there are things that while this GR 1991 was passed, government procedure to give you title, when they check documents, whatever documentation is in government office, that is only the that is only referred, and not whatever you have. That's most often that's what happens. So what it results in, you getting very less land, because even if you are cultivating 10 acres, in government documents you are entitled to just 2.5 acres or whatever. So on an average, out of these 1200 families, I mean, 10 guntha to 2.5 acres, that's the only that on an average people have got title over that much land, and they are still struggling. Another point of Dalit land rights movement is, what I observed is, it's a heterogeneous group. Dalit community, though we are saying it's a heterogeneous group, and within Dalits there are quite not, what you say, there is no consensus. So community at large or state at large, I mean state, they take benefit, I mean they take advantage, I mean it's used, and they are discriminated against one another. I mean, they are put one against one another. I mean, that's the thing. So we have to look into that while giving policy suggestions, and we have to look into that, because in Maharashtra there is, I mean, government set up with good intentions. Whatever is written over there, it's good intention, but if you read between the lines, there is a corporation for economics and socio-economic development of a particular community. It's Anna Bhau Sathe Mahamandal, it's corporation. Then there are so many corporations. For a general person, it's like for that particular community, government has set up a corporation which gives them education, which helps them in land rights and all that. But if you read between the lines, it's discrimination. One community against the other. Within a particular, there are 2, 3 communities, and one is applying for a particular scheme, another is applying for another scheme. Then there become conflicts and all that. So is internal conflicts, it develops internal conflicts, and very subtly, ruling, whoever it is, ruling parties, politicians have created this situation. I mean, it's becoming difficult. And for Dalit land rights, it becomes really difficult. I mean, first you have to iron out your differences within. And it started, especially in Mangaltai and Bapu's area, they did this thing. But now with all these things coming out, again they have to rework on it. So, I mean, my point is, I'm pointing out the difficulties. Another thing was social forestry was launched in Maharashtra. Just 2 minutes. 2 points. Social forestry was launched, and on these Dalit lands only this social forestry was land, because he mentioned that they are not going for titles, claiming titles, cultivating it. In that case, social forestry was imposed. The land was handed over to forest department. So Dalit lands only were put under social forestry. So some of these points point out to the difficulties, and we have to look into all these points and iron them out, and then only we have to give policy suggestions. Bapu and Mangaltai have prepared a particular guidelines, and whatever based we have prepared documents to guide whoever is working in that area, which documents to collect, whom to approach, how to collect maps and all that in Marathi. And we call it Vaijapur pattern, and district collector of Aurangabad appreciated it. And now they have officially taken up this Vaijapur pattern document as giving it to Dalit Land Rights, whoever wishes to get into that, whoever wishes to claim to that. Yeah, thank you very much for timing. Even if you have questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Raghunandan. He has given details of getting the title and ownership, and through that empowerment. And now comes Ramesh, who will be looking into futuristic way of the implications and policy interventions.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kumarji. And thanks to Lalitji, Nicholas Bhai, and Raghunandanji. Very interesting presentation. I really enjoyed the whole presentation, especially Nicholas Bhai, your long story. So let me come to the point. I mean, I don't want to tell the story of Dalit land rights because you have already heard a lot of things. But what are the future pathways for us? How to look the whole Dalit land agenda in the futuristic perspective? But before, I would like to start with a story of two very interesting estates. The two state of India, which is known as one of the richest state in terms of the agrarian economy. And you can name Punjab is a one, and second is a Bengal. In Punjab, and why these two states are extremely important with the perspective of Dalit land rights, I would like to highlight that issue. The Punjab, which is known as one of the highest producer of wheat and second in the rice. So it's mainly because of their contribution and because of the huge investment on the Green Revolution in the 60s and in the 70s. But Punjab is also known for one of the highest percentage of Dalit population. 34% of the population is Dalit population. Where, as Nicholas ji said, there is a land, Shamlat land, which is actually reserved for the Dalit community. When I go deeper, when we did research with the Jai Singh ji and the NFDRLM, we find that 90%, believe me, more than 90% of the Dalit population in Punjab are still landless and homeless poor. I'm talking about the state which is known for its agrarian prosperity, where the situation of Dalit, 34% Dalit population, and absolute landlessness among the Dalit communities. The second example is a Bengal, and Bengal is also known for another reason, one of the best model of land reforms in the country. I have my own different opinion about whether it's a good model or bad model, but let me bring only one figure, which is very shocking. The second highest Dalit population in India is a Bengal, close to 27% of the population. If you go deeper, if you really find the socio-economic caste census data of 2015, you may shock that 88% of the Dalit population in Bengal are still landless and homeless. Two richest agrarian state, situation of Dalit in terms of their highest percentage proportional population, and you can see the reality. So this actually provoked me to study the whole basic concept of Dalit land rights. And I particularly find the whole idea of Dr. Ambedkar, coincidentally, Nicholas ji, which was presented on 10th October 1927 in Bombay Legislative Assembly, a revolutionary proposition for the nationalization of agriculture. And why it's important in today's context, I'll bring some of my argument, and you may disagree or agree or disagree, it's your choice. So there are three very interesting ideas which actually bring in this particular note. He was a strong believer, Dr. Ambedkar was a strong believer of state socialism. And why? Because a very specific line from his note, by taking over the uncultivated land or unused land, agricultural land, and giving to the landless laborers. And why it's important in today's context? Because if you see the all so-called unused land, who are the biggest owner of so-called unused land? Definitely it's the government of India, but who are the biggest client of unused land? Imagine, carbon market, right? So you have choice whether you want to actually give it to the Dalit community, the real cultivator, or whether you want to open for the global market. So that's why this proposition, the state socialism idea of the nationalization of agriculture or nationalization of land is extremely important in today's context. The second idea was the leasing out the land to the group of cultivators. And that's actually encouraged to start with a cooperative model. If you look the whole China model of land reforms, you can simply see that they were the starting point, one of the basic nucleus of the agrarian reforms and the land reforms in the China was the collectivization. So his idea was absolutely perfect in that way to follow the line which actually China has adopted long back. I mean, today the situation is very different in China. We cannot compare the same China after 60 years, but this could be a one interesting starting point. And the third is the nationalization of land by collectivization of agriculture. Agriculture as a state-run industry. Why not? Because if you look that India is also known for one of the worst track record, the highest number of farmer suicide in India, then why not the agriculture is a responsibility of the state? Because the state is responsible for provoking the farmers to commit the suicide. So this three basic idea from the larger political theorem of Dr. Ambedkar is very important. The fourth and very important argument, if you look in India, in Indian context, that the first generation of reforms, we call it the socialist era of India. The whole of tenancy legislation and the land ceiling legislation was the product of the mid-60s and the early 60s, and Jamindari Abolition Act, etc., etc. This is called first generation of reforms. If you look the all policy document, the second generation of reforms, if you look the terminology called second generation of reforms, you can find three words in the second generation of reforms in the policy document of the Planning Commission of India: liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Just contrary, right? So I personally would like to propose this idea, the whole political theorem of Dr. Ambedkar about the nationalization of land and nationalization of agriculture could be seen as a third generation of real reforms. So this is one idea. And why it's important, let me bring sharp 8 or 10 points. I would like to prefer to finish in my time. So the first very basic idea, the first component, I mean, I try to read and try to compare some of these ideas with the ground realities. The first and very important, the democratization of the land governance. Because today the whole land governance system is not democratic. The Nicholas Bhai's example, Dalit Bhai's example, Raghunandanji's example is a clear way to look that the land governance is very much a revenue-centric and admin-centric. It's not a community-centric legislation. The land reforms in India is not at all a community-centric legislation. Where is the alignment of the mainstream revenue land legislation with the Panchayat legislation? The one of the most revolutionary thought from our constitution is the Panchayat Act. Where is the alignment between the land revenue legislation or the land laws and the Panchayat legislation? You may find absolute zero correlation, right? So this could be a one very interesting point, because what Ambedkar said, that the collectivization to allow the community to decide. And this could be the starting point, because the whole collectivization process could be start from the Panchayat legislation. The second, the abolition of the colonial land law, because still we inherit the colonial land legislation in India. The larger part, the 80% part of the land legislation is a colonial legislation, which was brought by the Britishers. There is need to shift from the revenue-centric mentality to the livelihood and dignity-centric mentality, what actually Nicholas Bhai is arguing. Because still the whole idea is a revenue. It's not about the dignity. It's not about the livelihood. Forget about the livelihood and dignity and identity. It's all revenue. Because they call the revenue officers. The collector is called, collector itself is a word which actually collect the revenue. So it's a very shocking fact. And to brought the whole issue of agrarian economy or the agrarian reforms as a state obligation. A state is obliged to do that. We cannot simply say that it's state choice to bring this law, this policy, or that policy. The third important aspect of this particular theorem is the security of land tenure. Today, if you look the larger geography of the Dalit land rights issue, we can simplify it that there is a lack of security over land tenure. And this could be resolved through the whole idea of nationalization of land and nationalization of agriculture. The fourth part is a representative land ownership. As Nicholas Bhai said, it's a very important representative land ownership. Today, we need to talk about the representative land ownership. If we compare the 34% of the Dalit population in Punjab, why not 34% of Punjab land belongs to the Dalit community? As simple, right? So this could be a one lesson we can draw from the political theorem of Dr. Ambedkar. Land to the tillers, again, very important area. The whole socialization of the agrarian reforms, as I said, and control over the means of production. Because today, the whole market is actually governed the means of production for the agrarian community. So how you make the state more accountable and responsible to look after all these issues. The sixth very important aspect, and I'm very happy that both of the speakers have covered this, the gender justice to the women farmers. Respect the feminization of agriculture, because it's a phenomena which is happening on the ground. If you look the whole the process of feminization in agriculture, I think it's a high time to look this issue and the whole collectivization process, what Nicholas Bhai has actually started in Tamil Nadu or in other parts of Maharashtra. We can take the lessons from that and to bring the new argument, a fresh argument along with the nationalization. The next is go beyond the complexities of the land ceiling, because land ceiling is one of the worst legislation. I was the part of National Land Reforms Commission in 2007 to 2009 and then in 2011 to 2013. We've gone through with the various data, and you may simply shock. If you see the efficacy of Land Ceiling Act, the real implementation success of the Land Ceiling Act in India is close to 12%. Why? There is only one single reason which I concluded, and I written in my report, that, believe me, in the tribal land alienation cases, Jacinta, it's shocking. The close to 98% cases related with the tribal land alienation went against the tribal community. This is recorded in the government report. If you look the Dalit situation, close to 85% cases actually went against the Dalit community. So that's why it's very, very important to understand this judicial loopholes. I call this a fault line in Indian judiciary. So we need to understand the whole fault line of the Indian judiciary here and to make it completely revolutionary and in completely different format. Go beyond the land alienation, as I said, just to minimize the land conflict. Today, why the land conflict is important. Coincidentally, our next session is a land conflict. Whosoever is interested can join us in the reading room, where we are going to present some of the idea, because if you see the amount of land conflict which is pending in the High Courts and Supreme Court of India, close to 5 crores cases. And if you look the whole document of the Planning Commission of India, it may take more than 400 years, believe me, more than 400 years to resolve the land conflict. So here we need some kind of a very different system to understand those conflicts. I mean, the conflict which was started, as Nicholas says, 30 years is already gone. Where is the result? Where is the result from the Indian judiciary? Where are the responses? Last 2 points, that agrarian-based development. Today it's very, very important. We need to understand the whole potential of agrarian-based economy. Just very shocking example, and one of my favorite example. If you look the history of China, that China land reforms, when the China got their independence and the communism, they started the land reforms process and they redistributed close to 44% of the land to the landless poor. Please record, close to 44% of land is actually given to the landless, homeless, and the agrarian community, the agrarian laborers. Japan, 37% redistributed to the landless poor. Taiwan and Korea, close to 35% and 32%. What about India? Guess? Less than 2%. Less than 2% land is actually redistributed to the poor people in the last 75 years. And this is the example when one side we claim that we are the Vishwaguru, we are nowhere in the Vishwaguru position even in the next 400 years, because we are far behind on the basic question of identity, dignity, and livelihood like land. So this is the one clear example where we need a big shift in the whole agrarian thinking of this country. And that's why the nationalization idea of Ambedkar is a very revolutionary, I particularly find. My last point is the intergenerational justice. I mean, today there is absolutely no choice to think for the future generation of farmers, to focus on the young people, because this particularly place is actually very important to allow us to discuss some of the core issue of the future of the farming community and why India is so important for us. We are the richest in the food systems in the world. We are richest in terms of biodiversity. We are richest in terms of the land productivity. We are richest in terms of the human capital engaged on the land issue. So that's why this whole idea is very, very important. And if we, as I said, if we take the reference of Dr. Ambedkar's of the nationalization of agriculture and land, probably we could reach up to a very logical end, and probably we'll be able to resolve some of the issues of the generational justice, because land is no more an issue of rights. I would say it's an issue of generational justice, and we need to do this generational justice now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramesha. Thank you. True to the title, the title given, you have covered both with data and other information, the reality and also the way forward, like a roadmap. What could, with policy implications, what could open up the new reality, liberating and empowering Dalits. Now, open to the floor, asking clarifications, questions.
My name is Madhu, sir. I'm a revenue inspector in Government of Andhra Pradesh, and I would like to share some points on this panel. As sir said already, those points are already covered, and you are all aware of these points as well. And sir said in India there is no assignments to the poor people, but since 1960, 1970s, so many states, and particularly in Telugu states like AP and Telangana, we were distributed so many assigned lands to poor people. And at that time, poor people means 2.5 acres for wetland and 5 acres of dry land. Who are having less than that, those are considered as poor people. And so many lands were assigned to SC, ST people as well. But the actually scenario, what's happening is, if any person is sold to their land, means that revenue officials will resume that land and give it back to the SC people. They have a right. But other than those people who have given to the purchased land to the other people, the government have a right to resume that land, and it can be utilized for some other purpose. That is the one point I just want to.
Okay, that is reality in Andhra.
No, not in Andhra, sir. It's entire country.
Okay.
But another one point I just want to inform that as per SC/ST Act, Prevention of Atrocities Act, and victims of atrocity can receive compensation. I think how many people are aware of this? That compensation is also up to 2 to 8 lakhs. That is on installment basis. When that atrocity case was filed in the FIR stage, 25% was given to the victim. And on that, if charge sheet is proved, another 50% is given to that person. And if it's concluded that finalized that case, means they can get 100% of that compensation. They are giving so many.
Confine only to land, and
but no people are aware of these things. But it's happening, and government of India and state governments are paying amount to them.
okay.
I just thank you for giving this.
Person here from Ethiopia.
Once again, let me introduce myself. I'm from Ethiopia. My name is Dalit. Currently, I'm working on Regional Land Bureau as a land use planning. My question is about the land rights in India and similar with compared to Ethiopia land right, because we as scholars, we do have many experiences. We came from different backgrounds. Some of us from the crop production, pastoral area or semi-pastoral, coffee growing, and others. But it's painful when we see I'm impressed by the finding, and I like it. I'm comparing with my country. In Ethiopia, similar to India, there is imperial period. During the imperial period, the land tillers, or they call it, at that time they call it tenants, they are evicted from their land, no right. But in 1974, the government is changed. What we call military government declared to distribute land for tenants, for tillers. The first thing, when the military came to power, the first activity or duty the military government made is distributing the land taken from the landlords to the tenants or the farmers or the tillers. And then once the military government solved the issue of land ownership or the right of the land, and then after some years, the government tried to make improved farming, coffee growing, and the pastoralist livelihood. Currently, there is no eviction from the land. Once distributed, we are exercising tenant security now. But some problems may arise in some areas because of public purpose, but still we are solving these problems by formulating the different laws to benefit the farmers. I want to know from your experience, you as scholars, still you have many experiences in India. What do you think to solve these problems by formulating laws to make it binding to improve the livelihood of the farmers? The other thing is individual right. Individual right is a crucial because certifying, making ownership is very, very, very important. A very big challenge is similar to India. In Ethiopia, the land right or access to land for young people. Once land is distributed during the military government, the young farmers or the young men do not have their own land. They depend on their families. No distribution of land in Ethiopia now, but they are accessing from their families. When they get married, they are going to access the land from their families. So how do you solve the livelihood of the young people? Still, we are exercising to improve the livelihood of the women, putting in the land law, because they are very marginalized group because of the marriage from one place to different place. They are marginalized, but we are improving. So, what do you think about the young people and the right of the woman to access the land, the land right? Thank you very much.
Maybe Ramesh could. Yeah. Few more questions we'll take. Okay.
Please be very brief.
Yes, I will be very brief. Thank you very much. I am also from Ethiopia. So I was Googling about this Dalit, what Dalit mean, what Dalit society mean. So I was reading on Google, and actually this is a kind of thing that requires reform. So I want to know if there is any reform, ongoing reform by the government in terms of making the laws inclusive for the Dalit society, for all the Indians. That is number one. Because I was also reading the laws, and I found that some of the laws are back from. There are laws in 19 something, 1902, 18 something. So I want to know if there are reforms.
Yeah, some of them are British laws. They will
Yes.
also answer. Constitutional provisions are there.
Okay. So is there any reform, ongoing
Okay.
reform? That's my question.
Hi, my name is Kashif Kakwi. I'm a journalist from Madhya Pradesh. So, one of the panelists is talking about that how Dalit women were burned uh, by the upper caste men during the in the British era and
Little louder.
after independence. So this is not very far. In 2021, a Dalit woman in Guna has been burned alive because she got a possession of the land the government has given her in 1990, and after 30 years of legal battle, she managed to get it from the court. And when finally she was granted that possession, the man who was holding that land for so many years had burned her alive. So this happened in 2021 in Madhya Pradesh. And when I dig deeper into this, I found that there are many cases that in 1990, between late 1990s, the Digvijay Singh government of Congress in Madhya Pradesh has given plenty of lands to the tribals and Dalits, the landless tribe, but they haven't got possession even after 30 years. And I spoke to the Digvijay Singh was the chief minister then. He said, the rights we have given.
Thank you very much. I am Zalam Bakala from Ethiopia. My short question, I am sure you have read and you are a witness that history is transferred through generation. I believe you have to feel guilty. In this modern India, India doesn't deserve to use the term landlord. Most revolutions of the 1950s, 1960s are about a resource, be it feudalism or capitalism, wherever in Africa, in Latin America, revolutions were for resource. The typical resource is land. I'm sure your heroes of the 1930s or 1940s struggled to free your ancestors to use for the resource, no more. By now, as far as my knowledge is concerned, the last free country in Africa is Namibia. Namibia negotiated with the then colonialists to transfer the land from the colonialists to the farmers very peacefully. There is no any hostile condition in Namibia to transfer all the land, agricultural land and pastoral land to the Namibians. It was peaceful, no hostility. Why in India, with the same people, why you are not able to solve this tenancy?
Okay, basically it is caste. It's also among the Dalits there are subcategories.
Hello, sir. A quick question. As part of essential pathways, currently we have discussed Dalit land rights in relation to agriculture. How Dalit land rights could be made a part of education and as well as environmental laws. What could be the essential pathways that this as a subject is not restricted to agriculture, but as part of empowerment which we are seeking should be made part of education, academia, as well as environmental laws that promotes environmental and ecological justice.
Thank you. Okay, now the people will answer. We'll go for another set of questions. So we'll come back again.
So first about the compensation thing, because your question, yeah. I know the model. I have been visited Andhra Telangana thing. Yeah. So, but see, the larger argument is a rights or compensation. And if you ask each of these speakers, because they have more than 50 years of experiences, and when you say that, okay, even if there is atrocity, even if there is a kind of a land alienation, government is ready to compensate. There is a very famous poet sitting here next to us, Jacinta. She wrote a lot of very interesting poetry on the compensation and the whole politics of compensation and the land. One unknown poet, I don't remember his name, he said very interesting thing. I just say it in Hindi. जो मुआवजा लेकर अपनी जमीन छोड़ रहे हैं वो एक दिन देश भी छोड़ देंगे मुआवजा लेकर, है ना? If you are ready to accept the compensation and to leave your land today, maybe tomorrow you can accept the compensation and leave the country. So we are not talking, this is not the fight about those people who actually wish for compensation. This is the fight for those people who need their identity and dignity back, which is there in the law. It's not about beyond, we are not going beyond the law. Second, about one interesting example of Gambia, as you said, that the military regime had did a lot of mistakes in the past, but there is a very interesting story of Indian company who actually grabbed a huge tracts of land in Gambia region. The Karturi is a one Bangalore stock exchange registered company which brought close to 800,000 hectares of land for producing rose. So this is the insult of some of those people who are dependent on the land. So there are all bad examples, but there are good examples too. Coming back to another question of the land rights in education, very interesting question. I'm very happy to that you raised this question. Few years back, we actually gone through with this study that all the law for which we are struggling today, whether it's related with the tribal land rights or the Dalit land rights, whether it's really taught in the law universities or not. So we gone through with the entire course curriculum of all the NLUs. We did this exercise in 2016, 2017. Shocking. None of these legislation related to the land rights for the Dalits and tribals is actually taught in any law university in India. Any law university. So you can see the whole judicial system is very patriarchal, very caste-centric, very bureaucratic, very colonial. There is absolutely no space. So I think we need to revolutionize those education system also, because they are the future generation. So I fully agree with your sentiments, but there is a huge gap. The last point, it's all about the land alienation cases you bring. About the land and property alienation, the whole question of land and property alienation. See, this is the very interesting debate in the LFD-RLM. I remember a few years back. So there is a two choice. Suppose if I am a tribal or Dalit, if my land is actually been alienated, so in normal course, people go to the land courts, which is a revenue court. And the average time, I would say, with full responsibility, the average time to resolve a one single case which is related with the land revenue takes not less than 25 to 30 years. Here's an example, right? So why to go to the revenue court? The second very interesting provision, the ST provision of Atrocities Act, actually allow you and empower you to register your complaint under this particular legislation, not to fall in the trap of the revenue court. So I think it's a choice with us to educate the people to go for the SC/ST, take the advantage of ST/ST Atrocities Act. So these are the 4 points I would like to cover. Thank you.
Regarding this taking the land issues to the court, in our Dalit Land Rights Federation, we never take this issue to the court for the simple reason that there are already court judgments and standing laws which are in support of your claim. In this case, we always used to tell them that taking this issue to the court is taking that particular person to the burial ground. That is what Ramesh had pointed out. And we would like to respect the court judgments and the laws. That is one of the reasons why we are mobilizing them to use the land. And secondly, about this depressed class land. You said that once it is sold to the other caste persons, it becomes illegal. No, because the seller himself loses the legal right. The government has to acquire the land and has to distribute it to the Dalits. It is the law. But the government always tries to take that land and consolidating them to be handed over to the private interests. I can give you many examples in Tamil Nadu, Panapakkam near Arakonam, Sri Perumbudur Industrial Estate near Chennai, near Kanjivaram, and in my own district, Viluppuram Industrial Estate and Tuticorin, and also in Perundurai, wherever you have industrial estates, there are more number of Pachimi lands, because without any compensation, you grab the land and you hand it over to the companies, and maybe in the underground you get some more money when you hand it over to them, and you use this money. That is what is happening in reality. That is why we are saying that if we don't go to the land and start using it in another 5 years, it will be under the companies. That is what is being done. In reality, it is. I can give you many number of examples with documentary evidences. It is what is happening. So it is in this context, there is a need that you make use of the law, existing law and the court judgment, and start using it. That is why we are moving in this direction. Okay.
Okay, 1 or 2 questions, then we finish. Bhargavi and Suranj. Okay, there is a mic there. Okay. Bhargavi, you can start.
Okay.
Just
Hello?
a minute.
Okay. One of the question is already clear, but one more just clarification to Sarah. You have mentioned about this India, China, Japan, and the difference between the nations or before, no? The main nation. So now we have been now discussing here. This is a land conference representing the whole state of India. So what step, what actions should we take up to increase this percentage? This is my question.
Thank you, Bhargavi.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I resonate with everything that Nicholas said. I recently returned from a field study in Kanchipuram district, Parandur airport area. Again, it is the same problem that the large chunk of villages where the land is being taken, it is, Pachimi lands and the Dalit lands. My question was actually in the context of this whole digitalization of records and ownership. Don't you think that is really tilted in terms of, given that language barriers exist, technology barriers exist, bureaucratic barriers exist, this will further marginalize, ownership aspects of Dalits.
Accuracy about it.
No, actually it is a deliberate attempt, deliberate initiative to alienate the people.
Correct.
That's what's happening. Because you see, after this whole concept of land bank, the government is very proud to say that so many thousands of acres of lands are available with our state government, you come and invest. That is the only slogan, which is in this context, this digitalization on all the other, this kind of
So a lot of states have recently brought out legislations which dilute a lot of the provisions to safeguard the rights of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. This is of course for serving the same interests that you're speaking about. So in that context, I want to also ask that, because considering the differences within communities in different states, is it a central level kind of policy that will be more useful, or should it be at a state level? I mean, because it's a state subject anyway, land. So how should the strategy going forward be? How do we structure our policies?
Quickly, coming back to your question about whether the land should be a state subject or the national subject, what is the appropriate? I would say the both are bogus. There's a choice of bad and worse, right? Who is bad, who is worse, it's your choice to define. But the panchayat should be a decision maker of the land issue. So why not? That's why my basic question, if Ambedkar's theorem is very clear, then why not there is a alienation, the whole alignment of the existing land revenue legislation with the panchayat legislation? Absolutely. See, there are all bogus committee which is there. The irrigation committee, education committee, health committee, security committee, that committee, that committee. Why not on the land committee? Not a single committee on panchayat on the land issue. So I think this new argument need to be brought in the public discourse. public discourse. Yeah.
And that's a very pertinent question and an answer to that. I think we will finish it because the next session people are waiting. Thank you to Lalit, Mr. Nicholas, Raghunandan, and Ramesh Sharma for their input and some of the questions, intelligent questions that have come, which has expanded further the thoughts and the policy implications about Dalits and land rights. Land is not an asset for a Dalit, it's an identity. Land is not simply merely a title, it's a self-respect, dignity. Land is not just piece of land, strength, hope, and empowerment. Thank you very much for everybody here.